Jolly good show, Major.
Touchdown, Seahawks!
Call it good fortune. Call it good luck. Call it a great game. Call it whatever you want to call it. But call the Seahawks the winners of a very, very hard-fought game on Sunday morning, this past wildcard weekend. Thanks for tuning in. This is Rob English, your Socal Seahawk, and this is going the distance. And we all saw the game. The Seattle Seahawks and the Minnesota Vikings went head-to-head in adverse weather conditions, to say the least. Inclement weather, I believe, is the proper term. At kickoff, it was, I believe, 6 or 8 below zero. I think it was 6 below zero. They had said that with the wind chill factor, it could get as low as 20 below. That's unreal. I mentioned that before. No one should be doing anything in 20 below zero weather. That's crazy. The game actually the weather did actually end up getting to zero. I think it was like midway through the fourth quarter or early in the fourth quarter. But it was freezing cold, to say the least. And these two teams went out there and battled it out for 4 quarters. And that is really the bulk of the story. Two teams went out and put on their big boy pants and played good football for 4 quarters. Now, I suppose the good football portion of that statement is the questionable part. Depends on who you ask. But any real football fan, any real student of the game, any person who knows anything about football knows that was a great game. They say weather is the great equalizer. Well, that couldn't have been any more evident than Sunday morning's game. When these two teams played before, it wasn't even close. Now, some will argue that it was because Minnesota had they had 3 starters on defense that weren't there the first game. I think it was Anthony Barr, Harrison Smith, and one other guy. I can't think of him right now. And that may have had something to do with it. But if you look at that game that was played a month ago, I have a hard time believing that those 3 players were going to stop Seattle from rolling Minnesota in that game. And if they did have any effect, it still wasn't going to bring that game much closer than it was. But it was an ugly game on Sunday, an ugly, hard-fought playoff game. Miscues and mistakes on both sides. Real slow start. And especially on the Seattle end. Actually, Minnesota, for all intents and purposes, their offensive mechanics, if you will, their production was okay. Their mechanics was okay. They were, Teddy Bridgewater was completing passes. Well, I shouldn't say their offensive mechanics were okay, but their passing game was halfway decent. It was better than Seattle's early in the game. But their running game got nothing. Just as I told everyone was going to happen. Seattle just put the clamps on Adrian Peterson, and that was to be expected, at least from me. Whoever was able to run the ball in this game was going to be the winner. And that's basically what happened. I saw a lot of ugly things from the Seahawks in the game, throughout the game, especially early, but even in the second half. what was going on with getting those plays into Russell Wilson before the play clock was down to 6 seconds. We used all 3 of our timeouts in the first half because of an inability to get the play call in and get the ball snapped before the play clock was running down. We used all 3 of our timeouts for that in the first half. And I believe we used at least 1, and it might have been 2 in the second half. Because if I'm not mistaken, we only had 1 timeout late in the game. And when they got down into field goal range, we had to use it. And then they ran down the clock to to just before the kick by Walsh. Which is why we would have only had a few seconds left if he had actually made it. So we really put ourselves in a bad position by not being able to get the ball, get the ball into play before the play clock was running out. That happened in both halves. If I'm not mistaken, I know all 3 of them were used for that reason in the first half, and I think the first 2 were used for the same reason in the second half. That's piss poor, and I don't know what the problem was. Maybe was it too cold? Was the playbook pages getting stuck together? What was the problem? I don't know, and I haven't really seen much talk about that. Cause that was one of my main questions. It kind of all got lost in all the drama of the game, especially at the end of the game. But, that was something that was very disconcerting. Lot of Minnesota Vikings fans and folks, well, before I go there, just finishing up, on how the game went. Again, the weather was a huge factor. Russell Wilson was off target on Sunday morning. I mean, really off target. Off target like he rarely, if ever, has been. I mean, there was no less than 2 balls. One of them to Tyler Lockett, and one of them might have been a Doug Baldwin, where if Russell had just put the ball in front of the receiver, it probably would have been 6. Especially the one to Lockett. Russell put the ball in the air, and it seemed like the ball it had to be because it was so cold, right? I mean, that's just not Russell Wilson's MO. He doesn't well, you know what? Russell Wilson does underthrow balls sometimes, but I figure sometimes maybe it's by design. But I will say I have seen Russell Wilson short some balls, and it's worried me before. But forget all that, right? On Sunday, every ball he threw was short. Anything of great distance, if 15 yards or more, I'd even go so far as to say that it seemed like it was short, like it didn't quite get all the juice it needed. The one to Lockett was 6 points if he just got it in front of him. However, that's not even a knock on Russell Wilson. It was 3 degrees below zero. -3 degrees. That's cold. I'm not even mad about it. I'm just saying it would have helped. If he, you maybe would have thought maybe I throw this ball a little harder than I think I need to throw it because I know that the last couple of balls have been short. We're fortunate they weren't intercepted. But yeah, it was hard. Russell Wilson didn't have a great day because of that. Now, to say all that, but at the same time, Russell Wilson made the play of the game with his arm. I mean, you can't ask for a better play in a game like Sunday's game than when Russell Wilson, that snap went right by his head, and which was a second or third bad snap of the game, mind you. But that snap went right by his head, and that wasn't a bad weather snap. That was a bad communication snap. Right? That wasn't because it was cold. It was because that ball just came up before it was supposed to. So, the ball whizzes right by, Russell Wilson's head. And so now we have to go into now, and I'm thinking, oh no, cause we're getting down to crunch time, at this point. We're getting there. It's like, okay, this can't be good. This is no good. I think it was 4th down. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, that was a 4th down play, and the ball goes past his head. So it's a loss. It's a turnover on downs, and Minnesota has the ball, and they're already up 9-0, or 9-3, or whatever it was. It was 9-0 because it was just before the touchdown. That play set up the touchdown. But yeah, Russell Wilson picks up the fumble snap and sees that he's got some room. Now, what we're really fortunate for here, okay, we're super fortunate because we all know what the league does with these quarterbacks. When I saw Russell Wilson go grab that ball, I immediately saw that he went down to his knees to pick the ball up, and he picked his head up. So I knew he was going to try and get up. But what I was expecting to happen is those refs to blow the whistle. Because a quarterback with his knee on the ground is easily to be considered a player who's given himself up, especially a quarterback. Now, if it had been Marshawn Lynch who went to his knees to pick up a ball, or a lineman or a receiver, I wouldn't have expected that. But when a quarterback goes to his knees with the ball in possession, you gotta think, I was thinking anyway, my God, I hope the ref, or I was thinking even after he got up and threw the ball, I was like, God, please don't say that they blew the play dead. I'm sitting there after I jumped for joy when he threw the ball to Lockett and he caught the ball and ran as far as he did. I'm looking around like, if that referee steps out there and said the play was blown dead, I'm going to lose my whole self. So good job by the refs for not blowing the whistle, because honestly, that's what I was expecting. That's what, after all my celebration, I realized what had just happened. I was like, oh no, they're going to walk this back and they're going to say he was down. But they didn't. And absolutely amazing play. Absolutely amazing play. Does anybody else want to disparage or down talk Russell Wilson? Leave a comment below. I mean, because what more can you ask for from this guy? You don't want to call him elite because he hasn't put the body of work together over a long span of time, but he's put the body of work together. The plays that he has made and the things that he has done and the things that he has not done have put Seattle in position to win games, period. Don't tell me it's because of Marshawn Lynch. Don't tell me it's because of the defense, because both Marshawn Lynch and the Legion of Boom have come up short this season in many cases. In many cases. And that isn't to say that they aren't as good as they are. We had the number one defense, number one scoring defense again this year, 4 years in a row. But there has been an obvious difference in the production from the defense compared to recent years. Marshawn Lynch hasn't been there the whole season. And when he has, he wasn't really up to par. He wasn't up to snuff. So who has been there? RW3's been there, doing his thing. Stop talking about how Russell Wilson's just a games manager, whatever you might want to say about Russell Wilson. He's an elite quarterback. Now, he's not the Tom Brady style elite quarterback. Right? He's not the Peyton Manning style elite quarterback. But if the only kind of quarterbacks that can be elite are the tall, stand in the pocket and deliver the ball type of quarterback, if those are the only kind of quarterbacks that can be elite, then you're writing off a whole bunch of players. Russell Wilson is an elite quarterback, and he would take any team to the heights that he's taken the Seahawks over these past, 4 years. So, yeah, man, this is Russell Wilson's team, and Russell Wilson is doing a damn good job. Russell Wilson is the reason that we won this game. Despite the, not so impressive numbers. For those that believe that the only reason the Seahawks won is based on luck. Matter of fact, I have a clip that I'm going to play for you, from Colin Coward. On The Herd, a Minnesota Vikings fan calls in to talk about, to kind of throw some attitude at Colin Coward, for saying, that Seahawks aren't lucky to have won that game. And they're not. It's a fortunate thing that Blair Walsh missed that field goal. You can't even argue that. It's very fortunate because Minnesota did almost enough to win that game. Almost. They got down to field goal range. They did everything they were supposed to do except for kick the football through the big H, the big yellow H. I guess it'd be more like a Y, right? He didn't do it. So they didn't do enough to win. So, you can't sit there and say that the only reason that the Seahawks won is because Blair Walsh missed the kick. You can't say that. It's simply, it discredits it discredits both teams for the earlier, 58.5 or 59.5 minutes of the game. It discredits the work of both teams to say the only reason you won is because you missed the kick. Because if the Minnesota Vikings had been able to manage one more field goal or maybe just one single touchdown, maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation. We would be talking about why the Seattle Seahawks fell short and why the Minnesota Vikings may be the best team in the playoffs since they took out the Seahawks. But no, we're not talking about that. Why can't the reason the Seahawks won be because Seattle ran 28 times for 97 yards, just under 100 yards rushing? Meanwhile, Minnesota ran the ball 29 times for 58. We nearly doubled their total running the ball. In a game where running the ball is going to be paramount. In a game like this, the one thing you have to be able to do is run the ball. Why are we lucky to win the game when the one aspect of a game like this, we doubled the production of the other team? Christine Michael. I would venture to say that most Minnesota Vikings fans probably didn't even know who Christine Michael was. 21 carries, 70 yards. Adrian Peterson, 23 carries, 45 yards. Again, the one aspect of the game where you're expected to do your best in a game like this, Minnesota came up way short. Way short. And that's why they lost the game. Our defense played better. Our offense played better where it counted. Now, all that said, if Blair Walsh would have made the kick and Minnesota would have won, the whole conversation gets reversed. You don't get to say, oh, Minnesota is only lucky that they got down into field goal range to kick a field goal with no time left. No, they would have did exactly what they had to do. They had an opportunity to win the game late in the game. They went down there, did what they had to do, and they did it, and they won. That's what you would say in that situation. So why is it not the same in reverse? I mean, when you're winning, you've done what you had to do to get in the lead. But the other team still gets a chance. The other team always gets a chance to do their job, unless there's no more time left on the clock. So Minnesota fans are they're sore, and they've been sore for a while. But let me go ahead and play this Colin Coward clip. Listen to this Minnesota Viking fan, and Coward literally destroys him. I don't know if the fan ends up hanging up or if Colin just cuts him off. But boy, did he get him. The Minnesota fan, he called him a fanboy, which really he was. He's a fanboy. Colin, how are you? Well, I'll let the clip speak for itself. Check this out.
All right, here we go with a Vikings call. Adam in Minnesota, you're in the herd, and you go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say you're nuts if you don't think that Seattle got lucky there. Our defense had them crushed.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I'm looking at the numbers right now. That's not what all the numbers say. Do you know what you averaged to play in that game? Oh, yeah. Do you know what you averaged with Adrian Peterson?
I don't understand how you don't think that they weren't lucky there.
Oh, okay. So do you know what you averaged? What did you average? You don't get an opinion. You're a Viking fan. You don't get a strong opinion. You haven't earned it. You're the Vikings. That organization and that area is dominated by Green Bay. You averaged 2 yards a rush with Adrian Peterson at home in a weather condition that favors you. Seattle averaged double that with their fourth-string running back. And you think
we lost because of
you lost because you have a second-tier quarterback, and you don't have a quarterback that can make a play. You couldn't score a touchdown. You're a fanboy. 4 hours of football, you couldn't at home with a weather advantage score a single touchdown. That's why you lost. You can blame the kicker. You averaged 2 yards a rush with Adrian Peterson. 2 yards. Seattle averaged almost 4 with a guy you'd never seen play, college or pro. And you couldn't get into the end zone for 3.5 hours because you've got a C quarterback. And your star running back couldn't run. So before you blame, you had all day 180 yards of offense at home. In the comfort of your locker room and your field, and you didn't have to get on a flight, and you didn't have to stay in a strange hotel, and you have a star running back, and you couldn't score a touchdown. That ain't luck, brother. That's not luck.
Destroyed him. Poor Minnesota Viking fans. They're sore, and rightfully so. Their team fought hard. They won their division for the first time in a while. It was great to see, them be able to, surpass the Green Bay Packers, who just have that division on lock more often than not. They were excited. They came out to brave the freezing cold weather to watch this game. They wanted to see a win, and they almost got it. There's no low like the low that comes directly after a high. That's the lowest low. Low is one thing, but when you get all high just to be disappointed down to that low, that's the lowest low. It just hurts. And in reverse, I can't think of a much better high than when you're coming straight from a low, from that lowest low. Cause I was almost at that lowest low. My confidence was unwavering. The whole entire game, and we hadn't had the lead till late. My confidence was unwavering. I'm thinking we're going to make a play sooner or later. Here comes that play. Here comes that play. Here comes that play. And we never got the play. And they got all the way down into field goal range, and the missed tackle. I think it was a tight end that caught the ball and got down there far. I was like, oh man. I knew we didn't have any timeouts because of what I said before about the play calling or the timing of the play calls. I do a lot of apologizing for Darrell Bevel, but I tell people, hey, you Bevel bashers ought to be ashamed of yourself for talking bad about this guy who's got you where he's got you over the last few years. But I don't know. And I don't know what the reason for the difficulty getting the play calls in, but that will be one thing that I would be like, hey, Darryl, what's the deal? I figured that those headphones and playbooks work the same even when it's cold outside. So that's my only question there. But hey, that's the game. We're moving on. Divisional round. Again, we're playing the damn Carolina Panthers. We can't get rid of these guys. We cannot get away from the Carolina Panthers. This is becoming a fairly decent rivalry in the NFC. And with them beating us at home this year, it makes this game that much more special. Carolina coming into this game confident. Carolina is coming, and the Carolina fans, oh my goodness, let me tell you. I hear it from Carolina fans. They just know. It's almost like there's no way the Seahawks have a chance. I really hope that Carolina Panther fans, and I'm speaking to Carolina right now. I'm speaking to you, Carolina. Charlotte, I'm talking to you. If you think, you guys aren't that foolish. You don't really think that the game on Sunday against Minnesota is going to have anything to do with the game next Sunday, this coming Sunday against you guys, against Carolina. The output, the game, the goings on of the game. I hope you're not going to attribute the difficulties that a team has in a game like that to a regular game. Because if you are, that's tomfoolery. That's simple foolishness. Carolina had already, conceded to the fact that the Seattle Seahawks should simply have their number after the the divisional round last year. They simply just conceded that, you know what? The Seahawks just have our number. But we're going to be back. But the Seahawks just have our number. We can't beat them at home. We can't beat them on the road. We just can't beat the Seahawks. No matter how close we get, even if it comes down to the last play of the game, when Cam Newton throws the ball into the ground, or even if it comes down to, near the last play of the game and, Earl Thomas causes a fumble, or even if it comes down to, the playoff game and Cam Newton throws a pick six late in the game, regardless of how it happens, they simply can't beat the Seahawks. And the Carolina Panthers fans, they've conceded to that fact. They really had. Up until earlier this year, when Carolina came in and beat the Seahawks at home. We lost 3 games at home this year. It's unbelievable. Came in and beat us at the clink. And it's like all these previous games never happened. Now, and I'm giving consideration for the fact that they went 15-1. But now this 15-1 Panthers team is unbeatable, at least not by the Seattle Seahawks. Cam Newton had over 3,800 yards passing, 35 passing touchdowns, 10 rushing touchdowns. He's probably a shoo-in for the MVP. Now, I'm hyping the Carolina Panthers right now. I'm talking good about you. Cam Newton's passing yards, Cam Newton's season, in general, is really special, considering his receiving core. Ted Ginn Jr. Remember, no Kelvin Benjamin all year long. He was on the IR before week 1. Ted Ginn Jr., who has been a journeyman wide receiver throughout his entire career. Picked up by Miami in the beginning. Went to San Francisco, then to Carolina, then to Arizona, and then now back in Carolina. And he's emerged as a star this season. Over 700 yards receiving and 10 touchdowns. I mean, a star in that offense. And they got, Jericho Cotchery And, Jericho Cotchery is a little bit of an older guy. He's getting a little long in the tooth, but he's been a workable, number 2 there in that system. Devin Funchess and Corey Brown, 2 young talents. They got the Carolina Panthers are high on Devin Funchess. They're expecting the Funchess and Benjamin, duo to be a big deal for them next year. I think I saw a post on, Twitter or something like that, the Twin Towers or something like that. But how soon we forget how things really go between the Seahawks and the Panthers. Should say how soon they forget. They seem to forget that Cam Newton is pedestrian at best against the Seattle Seahawks. Just look at it. Just look at the stats. Look at the history in the Russell Wilson era. Just look at it. Cam Newton doesn't do all that Cam Newton-y stuff against us. He simply doesn't do it. He doesn't rush for stuff. He doesn't throw for a lot of stuff. I mean, he throws the ball, but he doesn't do all that Cam Newton-y stuff. He doesn't do all that MVP performance stuff against the Seattle Seahawks defense. He doesn't do it. Earlier this season when they beat us, we had a late lead. During a time where Seattle really we just couldn't get our head out of our you-know-what on defense. And it was a game where we, for 3.5 quarters, did all right. And then, just right when we had to just make that final play, we couldn't do it. Carolina Panthers fans seem to either forget or don't want to remember, don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about that touchdown pass that Cam Newton threw to Greg Olsen in the 4th quarter with 30-something seconds left was on a busted coverage. It was a busted play on defense. That wasn't a play that Cam Newton made an amazing pass on. Okay, it wasn't Cam Newton threading the needle or dropping in with a beautiful touch pass. It was a routine pass and a routine catch. Greg Olsen didn't have to sky above the defense. Greg Olsen didn't have to make an amazing one-handed grab like Doug Baldwin did on Sunday in Minnesota. Hashtag Odell Beckham Jr. He didn't have to do anything like that. He didn't have to do anything like that. He simply ran, looked, caught the ball. Ran, turned his head, caught the ball. When Greg Olsen turned, he knew he had a touchdown already. Matter of fact, when Greg Olsen, before he even turned, I can guarantee you he was thinking, oh my God, I hope Cam's throwing me the ball. I guarantee you. When Greg Olsen, by the time Greg Olsen took his 4th step, after that play, after the ball was snapped in that play, I guarantee you by the 4th step he took, he was thinking, holy crap, Cam, throw me the ball. Because that's that's all the time it takes. When there's a blown coverage, the offense knows it. Especially the player who the coverage is blown on. It was over. And no time to recover. So that wasn't, that wasn't a play where somebody's physical ability, triumphed over someone else's or something like that. It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't a great individual effort on the part of Cam Newton or Greg Olsen. It was pitch and catch. And it was only pitch and catch because of a blown coverage. It wasn't even that they were out coached. It wasn't that the drawing up of the play, confused or fooled the defense. There was a confusion in the play call on the defensive side. Richard Sherman played the wrong D. Richard Sherman was supposed to have that deep third, and instead he took the flat. And as soon as Richard Sherman took about a step and a half in the wrong direction, it was already over. So, minus those types of issues, and they do happen. But Seattle was full of those type of issues. And, you know, tight ends ate us up all first half of the season. Right? Hashtag Tyler Eifert. But those types of issues have been largely, corrected throughout the rest of this year. And, I don't see that changing come Sunday. So it's going to be a good game. I'm not going to sit here and act like I think it's going to be a blowout, because these games don't typically end in blowouts. I'd even go so far as saying that the game last year in the divisional round at Seattle was a bit of a one-off, because we nearly doubled their score in that game. I'd say that was probably a bit of a one-off. I expect this game to go per usual between Seattle and Carolina. However, what we have is that advantage that, Minnesota kind of had on us, where we came into their house and beat them up real bad. And then we came back to their house and didn't beat them up so bad again. Again, mostly the weather. But you have that advantage. Once you know what someone has the ability to do to you, you have the ability to correct and try not to let those things happen again. I wouldn't be surprised if Greg Olsen gets held down, but good in this game. Greg Olsen was the best tight end in football this year, second to only Gronk. I would even wager that Greg Olsen is going to be I don't want to say a non-factor, because that's just not smart talk. But Greg Olsen will not go off on us like he did last time. There's going to be quite a bit of attention paid to Greg Olsen. Well, that's all I pretty much got for this one. Looking forward to the game on Sunday. I will be hitting you guys with a short yardage at least once this week, maybe two of them leading up to the game, but I'll definitely get on with a short yardage here maybe Thursday or Friday, unless something groundbreaking happens before then. I'll probably go around the NFL a little bit. But hey, thanks for tuning in. This is Rob English, your Socal Seahawk. Be back with you guys soon. Go Hawks.